Welcome back. I am joined with Asusena Resendiz. She's a candidate for the 13th Congressional District. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. We're going to get started. First thing on the agenda today, many people across the country are talking, of course, about the impeachment of the president. Talk to me about your take and what you think the political climate of your party will be going into the 2020 election.
You know, that's a great question. I find myself just very saddened about the whole situation. And I really just have to look at it as an American and knowing that it's a hard decision for what I hope to be my colleagues soon to make, and trusting that they are doing the right thing, because this has truly become a political issue. It doesn't matter what Asusena thinks. I just have to trust the process and trust that my Republican colleagues are going to be doing the exact thing that needs to be done under the Constitution, and not let this interfere and be a political game. Now, wouldn't that be nice? But that's not the case at all. And there's no win for anyone. There isn't, because at the very least, this is going to change history, and only history is going to be able to tell us if it's something that worked in one party's favor or if it worked in another's.
Okay. Next question. Of course, the people of the 13th District want to know, why did you decide to run?
So I decided to run primarily because service to country, service to state, primarily service to the people of the 13th District. The 13th District is where I was born. It's where I grew up. It's where I voted for the first time ever. When my mother became a U.S. citizen, I took her to the voting ballot, you know, and it's one of those things that I find myself thinking about where I came from and the humility that I pray maintain, not itself in me, but in service, because you constantly want to do more, because I feel that I owe it to this country primarily. Ronnie Hopper, which I can't hardly say anything about that man without wanting to tear up, but his level of service to my family when we immigrated here from the U.S., and I'm first generation born here in the States, you know, my 3 older siblings and my parents, that's who gave my dad his first opportunity at employment. And we worked in the fields with my dad, in the fields with Ronnie, in the fields, you know, with his kids, and the level of service that he showed us, which you recognize it early on, but you don't realize what kind of impact it has until you go to the farm to tell him that you're running for Congress, and then both of you start crying. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought? And the fact that they showed a level of kindness that you don't anticipate it these days, because the world is different. We're living in a different time from when my parents came in '76. And I just owe it to people like the Hoppers to just remind them how appreciative I am for that opportunity.
Okay. You talked a little bit about how the 13th District is where you grew up. For people in Wichita Falls specifically who don't know you, have never heard of you, talk to us a little bit about your background, maybe 3 things about your background or your experiences that kind of makes you qualify for this position, or you just want people to know about you.
Okay. So first and foremost, I would like for them to know that I am one of the hardest working people that you will ever meet, simply because that's what was instilled in me by my parents. And my parents always reminded us that no one owes us anything, that life is what we make it. Choices, those are personal choices. You will live and die by your choices, so make sure you make the right ones. And you know, sometimes we didn't, but you know, we also learned from them too. So you know, it's just one of those things that if one doesn't recognize where they're from, then all is for naught, because I'm representing the people of the 13th. I was born in Floydada, Texas. I was raised in Petersburg, Texas. I went to school, elementary through high school, in Petersburg, Texas. My first vote was for Congressman Thornberry, and that was all in the 13th. Now, when redistricting came along this last time, Hill County was cut out. but we were still in the 13th, the most formidable years of my life. And if it had not been for the values that I grew up with, the people I'd grown up with that were the 13th, my mom, I don't know if she would have become an entrepreneur. I don't know how my dad would have, you know, maintained his relationship with not just the Ronnies of the world, but really that sacrificial work ethic that as a farmer, as a rancher, you have to have a backbone of steel to work in those conditions. And knowing the love that I have for farmers particularly, that's one of the reasons I want to run. If you want to know a different reason as to why I want to run, I'm first generation born here in the States. How many little Asusenas are out there that are, at best, I was supposed to have left Petersburg for another opportunity. And here I am talking with you, and you know, I'm running for Congress, and who would have thought? I know a lot of people that didn't, but it takes a lot of people to truly believe in you, in your idea, and it's up to me to pay that forward. And it doesn't matter to whom. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what race they are, what religion they are. We owe it to ourselves. We're America, and I am a fervent supporter of being all-American and everything that comes with being an American.
Any fun facts you're hoping people can know?
Ooh, I got kicked out of the David Letterman show back in the day. My ex-boyfriend and I, let's see, doesn't matter what year it was about mid-2000s, and for whatever reason, that's where he wanted to go. He wanted to go to the David Letterman show in New York, and I got the call, and they asked me some questions about the show, and it was trivia, and I can't believe I got it right. And all right, well, you'll have tickets in the mail. Got the tickets. We went to New York, and I didn't know necessarily what catcalling was, but apparently I did. And I just said, "I love you, Dave," which I really don't. You know, I think I was just in the moment. And next thing I know, I'm being escorted out during the break. And my boyfriend didn't follow me, hence he's my ex-boyfriend. Fun fact.
Okay, on a more serious note now, what do you think is the biggest crisis or the biggest thing that the nation faces right now? And if elected, how would you fix that?
There are just so many things. You know, you look at the state in which we're in, you're looking at terrorism, domestic and foreign, our educational system. I mean, let's take it home. Let's bring it to ag. And water resources. I mean, the list goes on. And we'll proclaim it, when I make it to Congress, I can only pray that I have the colleagues, Democrat and Republican, to work with to help identify these issues. I mean, we've already identified them, but what is it that we're going to do instead of scream at one another and tell each other that my way is better? And you know, it's a crisis around the world, because if, just as an example, domestic terrorism, international terrorism, no matter what, it's going to impact the nation, but it also impacts us around the world. What am I going to do? Well, it doesn't matter who likes me and who doesn't like me and who I like and, you know, whatnot. We have to work together. And as cliche as that sounds, it's true. Because then how are you going to get anything done?
The final question for you is, and many candidates have been voicing their opinions on this, what do you think, or what are your thoughts on candidates who aren't from the 13th district, who have no ties to the district, who are actually trying to run for the district? What is your opinion on that?
So can you imagine the job that our forefathers did when they were writing up that Constitution, and they saw this far out, and it's a constitutional right, and I believe that they're in it because they want to give back. that it's a level of service, no matter which candidate it is. I've been questioned about, you know, my residency here in the 13th, and the good thing is I have my story, and I know what I am to the 13th. But it's really unfortunate that we find ourselves in a position to where, you know, arguably you're one of us or you're not one of us, and, you know, you'll be accepted, you won't be accepted. Because just off merits alone, I'd like to believe that they too are doing it for the right reasons. I know I am. I can't speak for everyone. I can't even speak for the individuals that aren't from here, but I'd like to believe in my heart of hearts that everyone in the race is doing it for the right reasons.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll be right back.